All righty, we are ready to begin. We will have an opening statement and then take your questions.
We're obviously excited to approach a new basketball season, coming off of a year where we were taking over a new program, and our goal was to become better players, teammates, passers, shooters, and just excited about the strides that we took last year in the offseason. Our returners have really done a great job of embracing what the standard is going to be for Aggie women's basketball, and we were able to obviously add some talent to our roster with high school players and transfers. And so just really looking forward to what's going to be another tough year in our conference, obviously, and excited about moving the needle in the right direction and getting Aggie women's basketball back in the national spotlight.
We'll start up front.
Olin Buchanan, Texas.
Hey, Olin.
Hi. Joni, aside from staying healthy,
Yeah.
what were the areas when you evaluated your teams you said, this is where we need to make the most progress, and can you talk about the things you did to address those issues?
Well, a lot of it was just playing. We had a roster that just was inexperienced. You know, we graduated a ton of seniors the year before we got there, and so you don't know what you don't know. And so even though the roster said junior, senior, sophomore, in terms of playing experience, they were all freshmen. They'd never been on the floor. They'd never been in those moments. And so as much as you teach and you coach, and we did all those things in film, you learn it by playing it and living through it and having a season of figuring it out on the court. And so that was probably our best teacher, was them being in the fire themselves and knowing what it's like to have to carry the weight every Thursday, Sunday, and Monday of competing.
Richard Hendricks, Crimson Tide Sports Network. Coach, you mentioned your motto from last year was "We are becoming." At what point and where do you think this program can be with this upcoming season, this upcoming team?
Right. So last year our motto was becoming. This year it's tough. I think we have a level of toughness that is much better than it was last year, but it's still not exactly where we want to be. And so our motto is tough, with the acronym of trust, ownership, unity, gratefulness, and humility. I think we became last year resilient. We learned how to win some games in the SEC tournament. We put together a string of 3 games. And so I think we're coming into this year with a new confidence, with a new sense of understanding about what it takes day in and day out. And so consistency and toughness are the 2 things that we're really looking to have in everything we do day in and day out to move the needle.
Hey, Coach.
Hey, AP, how are you?
Good to see you there.
You too.
Stidham, AP and Kelly, as we see it, syndicated radio. Coach, what did you learn about your USA experience?
Anytime you have a chance to represent your country, it's something that you approach with great humility and honor, and just it's a privilege. As always, I learned that nothing happens by accident, and there's no place for your habits to hide when you're on that stage. And so the 12 young ladies that we had on our roster, the way they approached their business every single day in order to bring back a gold medal for this country was something that was just remarkable to watch and see. When you think about the fact that we had 7 days of practice before we got on a plane and went to Madrid, Spain to compete for a gold medal, when other countries are with each other year-round, year after year after year, that takes tremendous trust, that takes tremendous sacrifice. It takes a level of coming together and willingness to take your personal ego and put it to the side for the umbrella and the ego of USA basketball. And those young ladies carried that weight very, very well. But your habits have no place to hide. And so we were fortunate to have a group of young women who understood that. And obviously USA basketball and how they carry themselves and prepare, you're just around the best of the best.
Gabrielle Lewis, the next. You have a really impressive transfer class this year, and that's coming off not that many wins. How do you convince people to come to College Station despite the record? And, individually, how do you really kind of get them to come on?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, Gabby. I think in terms of convincing, I think that who we are as a staff speaks for itself. I think we have enough longevity in this game in the SEC, playing on a national stage. Obviously, when we were at the University of Georgia and now here at Texas A&M, that those young ladies know who we are, they know what we're about, and they know what they're going to get day in and day out when they come to our program, and they wanted to be a part of that. It was about being a part of something bigger than themselves. And they were very intentional about wanting to come for different reasons, but it was to be better human beings. It was to be better players. It was to make sure that they had a chance to be prepared when they get drafted and go play overseas. And so it didn't take a lot of convincing. That wouldn't be the word that I would use to describe it. It was more of like, I've seen, I've watched, I've heard, and I want a piece of it.
Yeah, Joni, just a couple of individuals in particular, what are your expectations for Janiyah and I'm sorry, I'm having trouble. India this year.
So obviously for Janiyah, she is someone who's very, very talented and is, one of the country's best players. And I think for her, our conversation is about just the consistency she has and everything that she does. She always shows up in a great way with a great posture to lead, to serve, to be better today than she was yesterday. But how do we just knock that up even more? And so because she has high goals for herself and for our team, and so that comes with great responsibility. And so we're working with making sure that she understands the responsibility and the expectation she has when she steps onto the floor day in and day out. With India, it is about using her voice and being our leader as a point guard. She obviously shoots the ball well. She passes it well. Her stat line is ridiculous if you take a look at what she did at the University of Oregon. But it's, again, preparing her for the draft. It's preparing her to play professionally, and what does that take? What does it look like? So we really spend a lot of time talking about the habits you have to have as a person. Who you are one place is who you are everywhere. And she wants to make sure that she's ready for that opportunity. But it's communication, it's knowing our offense, it's putting people in the right positions, and obviously knowing how to score for yourself and others.
Players mentioned earlier that Kendall Hunter is injured. Can you tell us more about that? Her timeline, will she be sitting out the entire season?
We don't know. Kendall tore her Achilles about 3 days before she was supposed to show up for summer workouts. Was going to be a really big piece of what we were going to do this year, and still might be. To her credit, she has attacked rehab like a beast, and she's way ahead of schedule. With that being said, we're going to rely on our doctors and trainers to tell us where she is. So it still remains to be seen if she will play for us this year or not, but she has put herself in a really, really good position to have an opportunity to see some time this year.
Right here.
Theodore Fernandez, Crimson White. Last night we saw one of your program's former players, Hall of Famer, take home a WNBA title.
Yeah.
Is there any conversation or lesson that can be learned from seeing former Aggies perform at the professional level?
Well, I think the best conversation is when Sydney comes back to campus, what she does on a very regular basis to talk to our team, and she says to them, look at last night, it's a perfect example. She doesn't play a ton, right? But she's still on a roster, and she's still a valuable part of a team, and a world championship team, because of the things we talked about earlier, her habits, the process, who she is as a person, how she shows up in a room every single time she shows up. That's why she's still on a roster. And then when her number is called, she's ready to go. So you have Olympian point guard Chelsea Gray, who cannot play. 2 starters don't play last night, and Sydney Colston gets her number called, and she's ready to go. She was wonderful defensively. I think her stat line was like plus 17, her plus minus. And so those are the things that she talks about to our players, and what better way than to watch it and then for it to come out of her mouth when she comes back to campus. Super excited and proud for her. We texted last night.
Coach Joe Gaither with BamaCentral.com. Can you comment on a player we saw earlier in the day, Sarah Ashley Barker? You recruited her to Georgia. Obviously, she left Georgia when you took your job at A&M. But just can you comment on what you saw in her recruitment, and then her growth in the conference as she's going into her last year?
Yeah, absolutely. So, SA is someone who I feel like is a daughter. We've recruited SA at a very young age, saw her play, had her at camp. And the first thing that I think about when I think about her is just her toughness. She has a toughness that a lot of players don't have, so it puts her ahead of the 8 ball. Her ability to shoot it, she's a 3-level scorer. She can play multiple positions. She's versatile, plays the 3, plays the 4, has a high basketball IQ, can be stubborn at times, but that stubbornness normally works to her advantage. And is willing to do any and everything for her team to win. And so the ultimate teammate in terms of just doing what's best for the team. She's had some injuries that she's battled, and she's worked really hard to keep herself healthy. Super excited about what she's going to do this year for Alabama and how she represents the Crimson Tide.
What are your expectations for this team? I mean, where do you think this team can go? I think looking from the outside, it's very different from what it was last year. So what do you expect?
All right, so we talk about goals, we talk about expectations, but really we talk about the process. And if we do these things, then when we look up, we're going to be where we want to be. And so is it the goal or is it the habits daily? You know, is it being one of the top 4 teams in the conference in terms of offensive rebounding, defensive rebounding? What are our defensive field goal percentages going to look like in terms of what we hold our opponents to? What is that PPSA going to be in terms of points per possession? And so those are the things that we talk about, and we want to have our players to understand at a high level, because if we hit those markers, then we're going to look up and be exactly where we think we should be.
Can you speak a little bit to Aisha Coulibaly? You know, who is she as a player? And when you heard that she was going into the portal, what was your reaction? Can you tell the story of her coming to campus?
All right, so obviously she's someone who we know well, having, played against her when she was at Auburn. High motor, another 3-level scorer, really has attacked her game and worked on her game. AC was great coming to Texas A&M for Janiah Barker, to see what it looks like to show up every day with a high motor and be consistent in the things that she does, and to have someone to go against every single day, and they push each other and make each other better. Same thing with Lauren Ware and Malia Johnson. That group of forwards has really pushed each other well. When she went into the portal, she called us and said, hey, obviously I know you very well. I've always liked the demeanor, the camaraderie you have with your players, the way you coach them, the way it looks on the sidelines. Can we have a conversation about what that looks like? I know I want to stay in the SEC because it does mean more. It is the best conference, and so my list is very small, but I will be staying in this league. And can we just get to know each other a little bit better and figure some things out? And so that's how the conversation went. She came on a visit, absolutely confirmed for her what she already thought from the outside looking in, and the process was pretty simple after that.
Cora Hall with the Knoxville News Sentinel. With the players that transferred into the SEC, there's obviously like a lot of stars in this league, but I think sometimes Janiah gets maybe not mentioned in those conversations enough, in my opinion. Do you think she's underestimated as just how big of a star she could be in this league?
Well, I think it goes back to what you first said. There's a ton of stars in this league, right? I think Janiah is also mature enough. This summer she played with the AmeriCup team, was one of 2 19-year-olds, and it was her 3rd time representing USA basketball. I think she's pretty confident in herself and her abilities. So she walks up and walks in with the mentality of, if I do what I'm supposed to do, the rest of it will take care of itself. And so I don't think she really focuses on what the paper says, what the media says, who people are talking about. Is something that she has done really well from a very early age, is drown out the noise. And so I can't say that it's something that she thinks about or that she's frustrated by. With that being said, if Janiah does what she's supposed to do, then when the season is over, we're going to hear her name. And that's what we talk about. It's like, it's not where you start, it's where you finish. And so let's focus on the things we need to do to make sure we're finishing as a team and individually where we want to. But thanks for asking that question.
You're really beloved by your players and known across the country and the conference as being this really important, formidable coach. You don't have to tell us all your secrets, but can you give us a little bit of insight in how you cultivate those relationships from a young age?
I think it starts with knowing who you are, because in order to lead others, you have to lead yourself well. And so fortunate to have people around me who modeled that behavior and just have spent a ton of time knowing not only who I am, but who I can coach and who we want to coach as a staff. And I think that's the first thing, is that we are intentional about who we bring into our program. And so because we have that intentionality, then the rest of it is pretty easy. The other thing we do is we start at a really young age evaluating talent, and once we evaluate that talent, we get to know who they are as people. And so that relationship starts 8th, 9th grade, and it is consistent. And so by the time they get on campus, you've got 4 years of a relationship that's built. So the sweat equity in our relationship is long-standing. So then that allows us to get to the hard things fast. And there's trust in that relationship. There is blind faith in that relationship. You look at Janiah, signed with us at Georgia, came right with us to Texas A&M with no hesitation. So there's a blind faith that comes with that. Sydney Bowles and Tanae Hilton did the same thing. And I think it's because we're genuine as people. We're very honest. We're very blue collar in our approach. We're not going to jump out of balloons when you come on a visit. We're going to make sure you see what you need to see, but it's going to be who we are every day when you show up to our campus. And I think that resonates with people, and we want it to resonate with the people who are meant to be at Texas A&M. What we do is not for everybody, but it's for the people who we have identified that we think can represent us on and off the court in a first-class manner.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you, Coach.
Thank you.